All right, Lepore. We are kind of getting to the end of the show here. So I don't want to go through every guy on this list of unrestricted free agents.
How many guys signed? Like 200 or something was the number.
Yeah, there was a ton of.
We have a 4-hour episode of the GFP. Bruno and I are going to use our knowledge to spit out information and data about every single player who signed a deal in the NHL.
Yeah, this would have to be like a 3-hour podcast. But before we get off, how about we do this real quick? Give me your best and worst free agent signing.
Best and worst. You're catching me off guard with this, Bruno.
Okay, let's go through the list. So just to kind of go through this list real quick.
I was gonna say, am I allowed to pick a guy who was a free agent but signed with his same team?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who was a UFA, even if they re-signed with the same team. So you have Dougie Hamilton, who signed with the Devils, 7 years, $9 million. Blake Coleman with the Flames, 6 years, $4.9 million a season. Philip Deneau, 6 years, 5.5 with the Kings. Brandon Saw, David Savard, and Mike Hoffman signed with the Montreal Canadiens. Cody Ceci, a 4-year deal for $3.25 million per year with the Oilers. And Philip Grubauer, who left the Colorado Avalanche to sign a 6-year, $5.9 million per year deal with the Kraken. And then guys that stayed on their same teams, you got Taylor Hall, Gabriel Landeskog, Tyson Barrie, and Alexander Ovechkin.
Yeah. The one that first popped in my head as far as the best one, it's Taylor Hall. Because again, like how I mentioned the whole thing before about like gambling, Taylor, we all know what Taylor Hall is. We all know he's talented. We all know he's going to produce. In today's world of what free agents go for, to get him at $6 million, and then for 4 years of term, like you have to give him 7 years or whatever. That's a nice one. And I think you got the Bruins. Let's call a spade a spade. The Bruins took advantage of a vulnerable player. This guy has lost a lot. He's been pointed at a lot in the way of like the teams he's been on, and it's kind of like the bad luck thing, like the Taylor Hall jinx. He finds a place in Boston. His agent is Bobby Orr. Coincidence. There's a winning culture there. They're an original six organization. He, without sounding cheesy, like he can find a home. It's still a lot of money. It's a nice signing all the way around. And like everyone's pointing to like, oh, look how much money he left on the table because of what he could have signed last year. But he signed that 8-year deal, that $8 million deal with Buffalo for 1 year, and now signs the $24 million deal with Boston. That's $32 million for 5 years. And that's not that he can still play after that 5 years. Like, so what were people really thinking he was going to get? Like, even like a 7x7, well, that's 2 more years. Like, yeah, he probably lost a little bit of money, but at the end of the day, like the guy still got paid. It's still a lot of dough we're talking about. And he's in a situation he wants to be in. And we talked about before how these guys are different personalities, different wants. And to me, it's just a match made in heaven for like Boston, a team that like doesn't overpay players. They like a certain fit. And for Taylor Hall, where he could have got overpaid somewhere, but the guy wants to win, so he chose Boston. So I'll circle that one. As the best one.
I'll give my best signing before we get to our worst. But no, it's hard to disagree with everything you said there about Taylor Hall. I think it was a fantastic signing, but for me, I think the best signing by far, even though it was a massive deal, was Dougie Hamilton.
You're going to say Hamilton?
And for the people who know me, you all know that I'm a huge Dougie Hamilton fan. I've talked about him on the podcast numerous times. I think this is a home run signing for the Devils. And just like I mentioned earlier in the show, like if you're going to make a splash in free agency, you either make a big splash for a star player, and I do happen to believe that Dougie Hamilton is an elite defenseman in the NHL, or you kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel and you sign cheap guys and hope that they hit. Where you're getting into tons of trouble is when you're signing middle of the road average players to long-term contracts. So Dougie Hamilton is a guy I think is totally worth it. He's 28 years old. He has 7 straight seasons of double-digit goals. This guy puts up points. He skates like the wind. He moves the puck as well as, honestly, almost any defenseman in the league. He can run the point on the power play. He can play on the penalty kill. He can play in all situations. I love this move for the Devils. Now, is it the best fit for Dougie Hamilton? Like, I thought maybe he'd go to a team that was a little further along in the process of competing for a Stanley Cup, but they got a ton of draft picks. I mean,
they got cap space too. Yeah.
Tons of cap space. You got Jack Hughes, who, I mean, they hope turns into one of the elite centers in the league at some point. So they got some nice young players in the mix. And I just think Dougie Hamilton's an awesome player. I think he's one of the top 10 defensemen in the league. So good on the New Jersey Devils. If you're going to go in and make a splash in free agency, I think this is the type of player you do it for. So that's my guy. But
yeah, the Devils as like an organization are sneaky dangerous. Like they just signed Hamilton. Like you said, they have a shit ton of picks. And I forget where I heard it, but some crazy stat where like they only have like one forward over 26 years old or something. Like they're crazy young, no bad contracts. Like the Devils, man, people like to play in that area. So it'll be interesting to see how like the Devils evolve the next couple of years.
Yeah, shout out to my buddy Wade, who is a massive New Jersey Devils fan. And when we were golfing, I know it's random. Like who's
like Brodeur? Like you like Brodeur as a kid? Is that the story or something?
He's the only Devils fan I've ever known. But he told me a couple of weeks ago we went golfing, and I actually didn't know this. He said there was a game this past season where the Devils suited up and they didn't have a single player, I believe, over the age of 23 in their lineup. Like it's absurd. So yeah, like this is a team, and it just happened like one night.
That's hard to do for an AHL team, let alone an NHL
team. Yeah, it's crazy. Eh? So yeah, that's a team that ton of upside with all the young guys they have. Now they bring in Dougie Hamilton. So
they brought back the green, red, and white jerseys.
What's that, Lepore?
I said they brought back the green, red, and white jerseys like they should have.
So you like that jersey?
Bruno, we're canceling the podcast if you say you don't.
I'm not saying I don't like it. But
oh man, the Italia Devils,
top of my list.
The Italia Devils, amazing, man. I love it.
All right, that's a topic for another podcast. Yeah. So Lepore, before we wrap things up here, give me your worst UFA signing of 2021.
I'm deciding between two. The first one that pops in the head is just the CC deal. He was drafted by Ottawa. Those who listen to the show know I live in Ottawa. I go to a lot of Sens games. CC's experience in Ottawa here did not end well. Like he was a punching bag for the fans here in Ottawa because he made a lot of mistakes. He was bad in his own end. He doesn't skate well. He doesn't rush the puck. He doesn't score. So he was an easy target for Sens fans. Then he goes to Toronto. He goes to my beloved Leafs, so I can watch him every game now. And it was more of the same. I was trying to find something right about this player, something that this player contributes, and I couldn't find anything. And here he is signing this deal in Edmonton at that term. Like this guy, he signed that 1-year deal in Pittsburgh. Was it for like $1 million last year? I
believe so. Let me double check.
Like how does that happen? Like hockey's all about like asset management. Like a guy, so a year ago, this guy couldn't find a job in the league for anything better than a team giving
$1.25 million he signed for.
Okay. So here you have like 365. I guess, no, we're all messed up because of the COVID year, but a year ago, this guy couldn't find a team that would give him more than a year and moreover, not much more than league minimum. What has happened in the last year that you're willing to commit 4 years and that kind of dough to this guy? I don't understand the logic.
It's absurd.
I don't understand the logic of that deal at all. And like these agents, man, like they must be really good at their job, or they're just telling their guys like, bud, we got to get to free agency because like all it takes is one GM who is not thinking straight to give us a crazy deal. That's what this one looks like. Like, I don't get it at all. Like even you're saying CC wouldn't have signed like, I don't know, like if someone told me he was going to sign like a 3-year, $7.5 million deal, I'd be like, wow, good for Cody Ceci. And he signed 4 years at more money. Like that's what I don't get. Like the term and the AAV. The other one I was thinking about, and people will argue about this one, is Philip Deneau. And like the Kings have always kind of been my second favorite team because like growing up a Gretzky fan. I don't get that deal at all. Like, I know he's playing behind Kopitar, and they're hoping like Byfield will slide in, but it goes both ways. So you'll say like, okay, well, we don't need offensive production because we're going to get it from our top six. So then we have him in this role. But then to that, I would say, then don't pay him $5.5 million is what I would say if that's his role and that kind of term. And like, I know that there is such thing as a player who is good defensively, as I touched on earlier in the show, but to give a guy that kind of money and that kind of term who doesn't score points, like, to me, it's like blasphemous. Like it doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like I don't get that one at all. And like some of these teams too, like I think they should get far too excited with cap space. And maybe that's kind of like a problem that happened with LA. They had cap space and they've had some bad contracts for a while. So maybe they're seeing things kind of like clearing up. And people are saying the Kings may be like sneaky good. So like they just thought they would jump on this. But like that's another one where if we had to bet towards like the middle to second half of this contract,
it's going to be bad.
Oh, it's a slam dunk. It's going to be bad. Like by year 4, paying this guy $5.5 million. And this is when I pointed out to people that like people point to like deals on the Leafs or certain teams with star players making big amounts of money and how it screws you. No, because it's hard to get those guys. It's like paying a guy. I think the problem is people make the mistake if they look at it like percentage wise. So it's like, okay, or sorry, they just look at it like number wise, where it's like, okay, let's say you would pay a guy $3 million, or he deserves $3 million, and you pay him $4 million, and it's like, okay, it's only $1 million more, but at the end of the day, but then those same people will point to like a star player who makes like, I don't know, 7.5, and say, oh, you know, you can probably get him for like 6. It's like, well, it's like ish the same thing because like, it's the 1.5 million here or the 1 million over there. But people just look at it in the way of like, yeah, you have to look at like in terms of the percentage increase rather than the actual like number increase. Like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, like $1 million wasted on the cap is $1 million wasted on the cap. But I'd rather give it wasted. It's a bad word, but people know where I'm going with that. But I'd rather give it to that star player because it's hard to get that star player. So like I'll quote unquote overpay there. And I hope I explained that right with like percentages and numbers and all that. But I think people know what I mean, where $1 wasted is $1 wasted. And I find people are just so quick to point to these like big contracts of star players and, oh, he makes this, he should make it. They compare him to another star player and they'll say, oh, he could make that. It's like, yeah, but that team got the star player and this other idiot team is paying all their third liners $1 million or $2 million too much. And it's $5-6 million too much across the board. That's what kills you. But,
yeah, I think you nailed it with these two contracts. I think the CC one is egregious because I just don't think he's a very good player at all. Like, I don't know how he keeps fooling teams into paying him money. Like,
you know, I mean, people say, Bruno, people say it's like the first round draft pick thing. Yeah. People say it's like this thing in people's minds, these old school GMs of like, he's a first round draft pick. He's a first round. I can get it out of him. He's a first round draft pick. They
always have that stuck in their heads. Like, yeah, like we can take Cody Ceci to the next level. We can discover something that his previous teams couldn't, right? We can pair him with this guy on the blue line and he's going to excel. But at the end of the day, like Cody Ceci's a bottom pairing defenseman at best, and you're paying him 4 years and $3.25 million. That's gonna be a brutal contract. Yeah. But I think you also nailed it with the Danault deal. And again, it just goes back to what I've said. You can't pay guys like this in free agency. Like, I don't want to say Danault is a zero offensively because he's not. Like, there's been seasons like Danault's
last year he was pretty close.
Yeah, like he had 47 points in 2020, and the year before that in 2018, 2019, 53 points. Yeah. But last season, 5 goals in 53 games, 24 points in 53 games in the regular season, 1 goal in 22 playoff games. And I get it. He's good defensively. He wins faceoffs. He's a responsible player. He was like top 5 in voting for the Selke trophy. But come on, when you're allocating 6 years and $5.5 million to a defensive specialist
what I'll say about God, Bruno,
who's just going to continue to get worse offensively, I think we can all agree that's just not going to look good. It really isn't. And with some of those young guys coming up, like you want Quinton Byfield to be one of your top 2 centermen. You don't want to be paying Philip Danault as your number 3 center $5.5 million a year. A few years down the line. I think Byfield's terribly.
Byfield's going to come out of his entry level deal still with Danault on the books. So yeah, but even the point he made of like people would bring up his points from a couple of years ago. Montreal didn't have it like, because he was like Montreal's top line center, getting power play time, minutes that he probably wouldn't get on.
He was miscast. Like he was never a number one center.
And like he's getting I'm sure he got a lot of points because of his minutes, but he wouldn't get those opportunities somewhere else. So yeah, again, it's a really, really weird one for me.
And I would argue that no player benefited more from the playoffs than Phillip Danault.
Hands
just
down.
In terms of like increasing their value as a free, like think about it. Lepore, if the Habs lose in the first round to the Leafs,
oh my God,
does Danault get this contract?
Oh my God.
No fucking way he gets this contract.
He should be sending half that deal to Carey Price.
Yeah. Like, I think that changed the whole narrative around, a lot of these guys on the Habs, but specifically for Danault, coming into his UFA offseason after everyone was like, wow, he's shutting down all the opponent's top players. This is unbelievable. And then there was one team that took the bait and signed him to a 6-year contract for $5.5 million a season. I think it's going to be a terrible contract down the road. I really do.
To what you're saying, like a lot of people joke about Justin Holl because like the Leafs dominated the Oilers and clearly shut down McDavid this year. So like when Justin Holl hits free agency, there's going to be some team that's like, this guy shut down Connor McDavid. And it's like a total joke. That's not how it played out, boys, but tell yourself that and make this guy rich. So
yeah, no, that's a great comparison right there, man.